Before the new year, we spoke about some hindrances to growth in our walk. We talked about unforgiveness and fear. So today I want to continue with another one, and that's pride, as you can see there. But the more I looked into this, and there's still so much more yet to learn, I found this is not just about a hindrance to growth. There's something more about pride, and I'm hoping you're going to see that today. So first of all, to be clear, the pride that I want to speak about is not that kind of pride that you say to somebody, "Oh, I'm so proud of you, you did such a good job." That's a pride that's like being, just acknowledging a job well done. That's a compliment to somebody. It's a way of saying, that was good that you did, that was noble that you did. And there's actually a few cases in the Bible where the Hebrew word for pride doesn't mean something negative, something positive. And that's usually when it's translated to something like majestic or excellency. But the majority of times in the Bible, when you have that word pride, it is completely negative. So to start to understand what pride is, we have to look at the first sin in the Bible. Now, that is not the first sin you read when you read from front to back. Chronologically, we have to go to Ezekiel 28:17 to see what this first sin is. Okay. Now, this is called the Lament over the King of Tyre, but this is a typology of Lucifer. Okay? And it says, "Your heart was proud because of your beauty. You corrupted your wisdom for the sake of your splendor." So pride is the first sin. Lucifer's pride at his beauty caused him to fall. Okay, it led to rebellion. Pride was the first sin, and it produced rebellion. And this is all before the Garden of Eden sin, okay? This is all before it. And here, I'm going to give you another example here. Is that flag in the way? Do you want me to move that? Okay. So Isaiah 14:11-15. Again, this is a taunt against Babylon, but it's also a typology of Lucifer. Again, okay? "Your pomp, which is also arrogancy, pride, is brought down to Sheol, the sound of your harps. Maggots are laid as a bed beneath you, and worms are your covers. How you are fallen from heaven, O day star, son of dawn." Again, that's a reference to Lucifer. "How you are cut down to the ground, you who laid the nations low. You said in your heart, I will ascend to heaven. Above the stars of God, I will set my throne on high. I will make myself like the Most High. But you are brought down to Sheol, to the far reaches of the pit." So again, pride caused Lucifer's fall. And there's also another really important connection to make here that I think you probably can see. And that's the connection with pride, self-exaltation. Okay, I will. It's all about self, okay? And there's in the Baker's Evangelical Dictionary, a little part of the definition, it says, "Pride shifts ultimate confidence from God to self." Okay, again, pride shifts ultimate confidence from God to self. That is a key to identifying pride. It's the glorification of self. It's self-idolatry. Lucifer wanted what God had. He wanted to be over creation. He wanted to be like God. He wanted to usurp God's position. He wanted all the glory, all about himself. Now, first in the Bible, they're really important, okay? I think we know this. They often set something up, or they're almost like a foundation to things that are going to come in the Bible. They're really important to pay attention to. And that's why I'm suggesting that pride is not just kind of a one-off sin, okay? It's setting a basis for something. And it became, as you'll see, or it is, a root for other sin. And I want to give you a quote from Andrew Murray in his book on humility. Okay, he calls pride the root of every sin and evil. It's a root. And it's really from this place of pride that resulted in the sin in the Garden of Eden, right? The whole rebellion. This is where it starts, okay? This is the root of that. So we're going to look at the garden. And we've already talked about Lucifer's sin, his own sin, okay? And growing out of that, we saw, of that root of pride, we saw self-exaltation, okay? We saw rebellion. And now we're going to see deception, still out of the same root. And we'll look at the temptation that he offered to Eve, the serpent offered to Eve in the garden. First, he cast doubt on the word of God. And in Genesis 3:4-5, this is what he offered in temptation. He says, "You will not surely die, for God knows that when you eat of it, your eyes will be opened, and you will be like God, knowing good and evil." And Eve believed the lie. So why was Eve deceived? This isn't all about just Satan, okay, and his position. This is also about Eve's response. Her reaction was really the key to the fall as well. Now, if we look at in Genesis 3:6, we'll see that Eve, she allowed her eyes to be drawn away from God and to herself. So let's read that. 3:6. She saw that the tree was good for food, that it was delight to the eyes, and that the tree was to be desired to make one wise. Again, her eyes were on herself. She saw what the tree could do for her. And remember Baker's definition about how pride will shift confidence from God to self. And that's what we're seeing here. Her confidence was no longer in what God said. It was all about her own wisdom at this point. She shifted. Now, this is something else interesting. I was listening to a teaching by Derek Prince, and I was listening to one on deception. And this is what he says about deception. He says, "I believe there's only really one door that lets deception in, and that is pride." Wow. Now this is from a man. This is his opinion, right? But it's based on years of experience, years of knowing the word. And I think this is really worth thinking about because of the word last week given by Bill and Edie for Temple Yeshua, and that was the word deception, beware of deception. And here we're seeing the root of it. Now, if that is accurate, what Derek Prince says, and also I think it's very much proved in the word, that call to beware of deception is also a call to get rid of pride in our lives. Okay? We've got to really seek our hearts about this. So I want to just go back to Eve again, one more thing about that, because there's another aspect of pride here. Because she thought she was being really clever, right? She was making this decision, but it was opposed to God's wisdom and instruction. So there was a decision to rebel, to believe the lie, but there's something else I'm hoping you're going to see. You probably saw it already. There's a connection with pride and lust, okay? She saw the tree was good for food. There's a suggestion of lust, right, for food. A delight to the eyes, a lust of the eyes. And the tree was desired to make one wise, okay? Lust for power, for knowledge. Okay, so there's another sin right there that's growing out of pride. And Isaiah says, he says, "Woe to those who are wise in their own eyes and shrewd in their own sight." And we see why there's a woe to these people, to when we're like that. That resulted in a terrible fall. So it's really no surprise that God hates pride. It's extremely destructive. And he warns over and over again about pride in the Bible. You can't miss it. And the reason you can't miss it is because God doesn't want us to miss it. Okay, and I'm going to show you a few scriptures in the Word on this. Proverbs is full of it, okay, full of words about pride. And here's just a few. Proverbs 6:16. "There are 6 things that the Lord hates, 7 that are an abomination to him. Haughty eyes," and then it goes on. But the first thing he mentions here are haughty eyes. That's pride. He hates it. Proverbs 8:13. "The fear of the Lord," which is something we all aspire to, right, "is hatred of evil, Pride and arrogance and the way of evil and perverted speech I hate. Perverted speech, that refers to deception. Here you go. Here you see the tie between pride, evil, deception. He hates it. Proverbs 21:4. Haughty eyes and a proud heart, the lamp of the wicked are sin. Pride is sin. And there's so many more. I mean, we could spend all day looking at that. So pride is both a sin, but it's also fertile ground, okay? It's like a seed bed for all other kinds of sin. And if it's not addressed, that fertile ground will allow evil to prevail. You can't ignore pride if you want to follow God. If you want to grow in the Lord, you can't ignore it, and you can't just push it aside. The Lord's not going to let it go. And we see that. Isaiah, this is when we talk about the day of the Lord. He says, the haughty looks of man shall be brought low, and the lofty pride of men shall be humbled, and the Lord alone will be exalted in that day. Pride exalts self. God alone is going to be exalted. Okay, we have Proverbs 16:5. Everyone who is arrogant in heart, anybody who has pride, is an abomination to the Lord. Be assured he will not go unpunished. I don't want to be called an abomination. Very strong words. Moreover, God doesn't just hate pride, he opposes pride. He doesn't just stand aside and walk away. 1 Peter 5:5. Clothe yourselves, all of you, with humility toward one another, for God opposes the proud, but gives grace to the humble. Quite about, 10, 15 years ago, I was listening to a teaching by Robert Morris. I think probably a few of you have heard of him. Very good teacher. And he was talking about pride. And he was sharing about what God told him about this scripture, about opposing the proud. And I want to give a little demonstration about what James, I need you to come here. And I guess he's a football guy, okay? So picture a scrimmage line. Okay, get down like in a scrimmage there. Okay, just like this. Okay? Actually, come over here beside me here, okay? Okay. He's scrimmage position, okay? And God's right there beside us, okay? He's ready to do battle for us, right? Okay. I'm going to pretend I'm God for a second. And James is somebody here. And all of a sudden, pride rises up. So what does God do? He gets up. He opposes. Can you see the strength of that? He opposes the pride. Thank you, James. Okay? So that's Robert Morris. Okay, that's not me. But I just thought that stayed with me. Okay, so a pride is not a good thing at all. He's not going to tolerate it. It's a doorway to rebellion, to deception, to lust, and self-righteousness. Okay? Self-righteousness, there can be brokenness that can come out of certain things. But the enemy will use the self-righteousness for pride to rise up. When you think about holding on to offense, holding on to resentment, that's about what they did to me. Okay, I have a right. The enemy's going to use that. And I'm going to show an example here. Again, pride is a root to sin. This time it's about rebellion, but it's through self-righteousness. This is the incident of Moses and the rebellion of Korah. Okay, that's in Numbers 16 if you want to read it yourselves. Now, Korah was a Levite, okay? And we know that God had set aside all the Levites to do special work to minister to him. That we can go into, that's another story why he did that. But anyways, the Levites were set aside for ministry to the Lord. And Moses had given them all their assignments as the Lord had given him. And they all had specific tasks. Everybody was responsible for their own. There was no crossover. Now, to understand this more, I just want to show you a little genealogy to understand who Korah was. And this is the biblical sort of outline of the genealogy here. Levi had 3 sons, Gershon, Kohath, and Merari. And under Kohath, you have 4, Amram, Izhar, Hebron, and Uzziel. Korah was of the line of Izhar. Amram, that's where Moses and Miriam came from. So Korah he was a Kohathite, so were Moses and Aaron. They're all Kohathites, all right? And Korah would have been a first cousin then, essentially, to Moses and Aaron and Miriam, okay? And just keep that in mind. Okay. Now, the Kohathites, okay, that branch, they were given the task of taking care of all the instruments in the tabernacle. They would pack them up. They would be the ones to move it. Okay, but one difference here. And the Gershonites were given something, Merarites. Okay, they were all given something specific as Levites. So the Kohathites were given more the instruments in the tabernacle that were used. But except for the line of Amram down to Aaron, that was special. The high priest line was given through them. But they were they were Kohathites as well. But so Korah was a Kohathite, but he was not satisfied with the task that the Lord had given him. He was not satisfied with what Moses had assigned to him. So he and 2 others from the tribe of Reuben took men. And this is what they said. They rose up. This is Numbers 16:3. It says, they assembled themselves together against Moses and against Aaron and said to them, "You have gone too far, for all in the congregation are holy, every one of them, and the Lord is among them. Why then do you exalt yourselves above the assembly of the Lord?" Now, it's true, okay, that God had set apart Israel as a people, and he was indeed among them, the Israelites, okay, just like Korah said. But Korah had pride in his heart. And I suggest he felt he had a right to the same things that Aaron and Moses had. He was a Kohathite. He was a first cousin. He was in that line. I have a right. So he was self-righteous. And that pride, going down that line, opened him up to self-deception. He did what was right in his own eyes, in the eyes of man, not in God. He wanted to be like Moses and Aaron. And does that sound familiar? Lucifer wanted to be like God. You see the parallel here? Why should Moses and Aaron have the leadership and not me? What's so special about them? Why can only Aaron go into the Holy of Holies? I'm a Kohathite. I have a right. Does that sound a little familiar sometimes? So Korah missed the point, okay? It wasn't Moses and Aaron who gave him this assignment. It was God. God decided, he chose the people, he equipped them to do the work. He put everyone he wanted in a certain role, he put them in there. And he put Korah in his role. Now Moses, and he's been described as being the meekest man in the Bible. He was submitted to God, so he recognized what this was. He recognized that it was rebellion against God. And here's his reply. Numbers 16, 8-11. And Moses said to Korah, "Hear now, you sons of Levi. Is it too small a thing for you that the God of Israel has separated you from the congregation of Israel to bring you near to himself, to do service in the tabernacle of the Lord?" And it goes on a little. "And all your brothers, the sons of Levi, with you? And would you seek the priesthood also? Therefore it is against the Lord that you and all your company have gathered together." So Moses put his finger on Korah's motivation here. It was all about the priesthood. It wasn't about what was best for the congregation. It was about him. He wanted the priesthood and he wanted power. And he felt entitled to it. I mean, it doesn't say that specifically in the Bible, but that's just reading between the lines. So as a result, if you read the story, their end was destruction. The earth opens up and it swallows them whole. And you can read more and you'll see also that this action of Korah, it caused trouble for the whole community. The whole community suffered. Okay, there was division and there were deaths. Whatever happens to one person in the body will affect the rest of the body somehow. So that's the fruit of pride here, okay? For Korah and those aligned with him. Division, death, destruction. And so right there's a clue as to an important way that you can actually recognize pride. Luke 6, 43 and 45. For no good tree bears bad fruit, nor again does a bad tree bear good fruit. For each tree is known by its own fruit. The good person out of the good treasure of his heart produces good, and the evil person out of his evil treasure produces evil. For out of the abundance of the heart his mouth speaks. And Paul in Galatians, he tells us what this good fruit is, the fruit of the Spirit. Love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, and self-control. So pride is going to bring the opposite. So what about other sort of types of pride that we see around us or even in us? Some things are very obvious, but some are not. And I think it's the subtle things of pride that are more dangerous to us, especially here. I don't think there's anything overtly prideful, but we'll talk about that in a minute. There's one thing in common with all these types of pride. It's about drawing attention to self, okay? We talked about self-exaltation. Look how good I am, okay? We see this in things like pride of accomplishments. Okay, now this is not about being happy or satisfied with a job well done. It's not about doing something to please someone because you care for that person. That's not what pride of accomplishments is. It's rather the motivation of the heart saying, look how good I am, okay? I'm better than anyone here. I deserve your worship. Look what I've done. Others don't even enter into that equation. Same with pride of possessions, you may see that, okay? Everything, all your possessions are to say, look how good I am. Look how amazing I am. Look what all I have. And what about intellectual pride? I'm so smart, look at me. Okay? Refusal to take correction because I know it all, okay? Refusal to even consider one's wrong. A desire to express an opinion, not because you want to share with somebody, but because you want to be heard, because you know, like I know what's right. Listen to me. I have it all. Glorify me. Anyways, what is the antidote? I suggest two things: humility and love. And there's lots of benefits the Bible says about choosing these things. So humility, or submission to the Lord, acknowledges our bankruptcy apart from God. He says, apart from me, you can do nothing. We read that this morning, right? In John, the vine and the branches. Or anything you accomplish on yourself is not going to bear good fruit. So it's a recognition of total dependency on God and a life led with this understanding. And there's great rewards for humility. Isaiah 58:15. For thus says the one who is high and lifted up, who inhabits eternity, whose name is holy. I dwell in the high and holy place, and also with him who is of a contrite and lowly spirit, someone who's humble, to revive the spirit of the lowly and to revive the heart of the contrite. Who doesn't want something in their heart to revive them and heal them? Psalm 24:9, he leads the humble in what is right and teaches the humble his way. We all want God to lead us, right? We all want to be taught by God. We want to know his way. Proverbs 11:2, when pride comes, then comes disgrace, but with the humble is wisdom. How many of us pray for wisdom all the time? Here's your key right here. Now, godly love is also an antidote. Pride is all about self. Love is about relationship, about others. It needs relationship. How can you love if you're only about yourself? There's no one else, right? God says that he is love. Jesus commands us to love one another. The self-centeredness of pride will not allow for love. You know, God and pride cannot go together. Love and pride are on opposite ends of the spectrum. So if you pursue learning how to love, you'll be pushing pride away. Now, I would guess that at least 99% of us, if not all, have some pride in some areas of our life. Again, it can be subtle. And it's critical to deal with it, because God is not just going to step aside, he will oppose us in those areas. And it's for our own good, right? So any area of pride is going to be an area of total unfruitfulness in the spirit and maybe in the natural as well. So how do we know where we have pride? Well, obviously, you have to ask God about it. He has to lead you, and he will, because he wants to deal with it. But if I had to give one way to check for pride, at least based on what I've looked at so far, you first have to look at the motives of your heart. Is the motive in these areas about self-centeredness for glorification of self? Then I would think that might be an indication there's pride in that area. Okay, remember, pride is all about self. Okay, humility, I think love is all about God and others. He wants us free from pride. This is about preparing, because we can't grow in those areas unless that's done, that's gone. So what I'd like to do now, Bev, there you are. Could you come up, please? So I thought we'd just pray this together first. This is the end of Psalm 139. And just sit quietly for a few minutes and just check in with God. And I would suggest you ask him for any areas of your life that you need to deal with in pride. And he's going to show you, even if he doesn't show you now. You keep asking him, he's going to show you. Because again, he loves us. He wants us to be free. He wants us to grow. So let's just say this together. Okay? Search me, O God, and know my heart. Try me and know my thoughts, and see if there be any grievous way in me, and lead me in the way everlasting. So just take a few minutes now.